We're in this series called Seasons, and we're talking about these seasons of life, but we're also kind of metaphorically tying that to the seasons that we experience on the calendar, kind of how those feel and the way those go in our lives. But how many of y'all would say that summer is your favorite season of the year? Can you just raise your hand real quick for me? If you were a summer person, some of y'all, I see some hands, all right. I think I love summer. Summer's great. I think I'm a fall person by nature. I really, cooler weather, I mean, it's hard to argue with that a little bit, but I love Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving and Christmas are like 1A, 1B for me. So I think I'm fall, but summer is great. All my students in the room are like, yes, like summer break. Absolutely, it's summer. For any educators in the room, you're like, yes, summer break is it. But the summer is great. We get this warmth and we get this joy and we get like the celebration and what feels like the fullness of life, and we feel fulfilled and there's things happening. And I think if you know the rhythm and the pace that you move at sometimes, maybe it's because you're a college student and you get summer break off. Maybe you're a high school, middle school student, you get summer break off. Maybe you're an educator. Maybe you're just a parent of one of those categories. And because of that, by nature, you try to align some rest in that season for you as well. But when if you're a summer person, if you know what I'm talking about, it is like yes. You know what I mean? Like it's like take a breather. For some of you guys, you've been walking through a season of your life right now where the rhythm and the pace is NASCAR speed. Like it's fast and you've got a lot going on. And so even for you, the pause and the deep breath, you can feel it. Like you can feel it. The weight, like you can almost feel the weight lifting a little bit when you just take a minute to thoughtfully pause and rest and wait. And we talk about summer break, and I will never forget maybe the moment I felt adulthood at its fullest. I had started in student ministry when I was 21, and so we got into ministry. And I remember the first time one year a student came up to me, and it was summer break, and they said, "Hey, Pastor Dustin, when do you get back from break?" I was like, you know what? Mind your business, first of all. You worry about you, and I'll worry about me. And no. I took that opportunity to explain to that student then and there, school wasn't all that bad. It was okay. Like you go for a little bit, you get some breaks, you get summer break, fall break, winter break, spring break, Labor Day, Columbus Day, I don't know, like whatever. You get some breaks in there. And I told him, I said, when you graduate, you're going to get real familiar with 3 letters, PTO. You got to earn that bad boy now. You're going to learn real quick, 3 letters. You're going to have to earn that time off. And explain that to them. But we like summer seasons. We like summer. Summer, it's a good time of year. And where are my beach people at? Raise your hand if you're a beach person. Yeah? Y'all are like, let me go to the beach every week that I can, every weekend, like toes in the sand, warmth of the sun. There's something about, I think, the beach that as Floridians, I don't even know if you're a native Floridian and you're like, beach is kind of mid. Do they come and get your driver's license? Like, they slap Wisconsin on there or something? Like, I don't know. Like, are you allowed to do that? We like it because it feels like all the things that summer is supposed to include. You know, it's rest. Most of the time, unless you have toddlers, we're going to have a counseling session together. Toes in the sand is relaxing, usually. The warmth of the sun, there's something about the beach that feels like the ultimate summer destination or activity. And so we get there and there's something about it. Maybe it's nostalgia. I don't know if you have great memories of going on trips with family as a kid, but maybe it's the nostalgia and it's something about the cooler and the little wagon and bringing some sandwiches that you make on the beach, right? And you got the chips that all the seagulls try to steal and you fight them off for your life. But man, I like the beach. I'm good with it. My wife loves the beach so much so that we got married on the beach. That was fun. And it's something about it. I'm cool with throwing the football and tossing the frisbee and being around friends and family and gathering. And it's just, there's something about it that feels like the ultimate summer destination. The reality is, we're talking about this series in seasons. And we're talking about it in a metaphorical sense, but Scripture talks about these seasons of life that are these time periods that are marked throughout our lives that include some different things. That there are different markers in our lives with these seasons that include a different set of experiences and activities and events and life circumstances. And some of them are rapid, and some of them the pace is frantic, and some of them are full of joy and abundance. We talk about summer. If you've been in the series for a while, Pastor Sean talked about winter and almost the cold and staleness of winter sometimes. We've experienced moments in our lives where it feels as though there's some stuff in our life that, man, it just feels like it's withering or kind of drawing back, and we don't maybe see as much vibrance in our lives during these seasons. Last week, Pastor Sean talked about spring and the newness of life, like revival, those things that were once dying or withering or fading, and now they are brought back to this new life with spring. The flowers that had withered are brought back to color and vibrance, and we have those seasons in our lives. We talked about the restoration of Peter, who was so passionate about following Jesus, was very bold and was given this new name, and then he had this moment where he, in the midst of Jesus' betrayal, he denied even knowing this man that he followed in his life. This moment, that was a winter moment, I think, for Peter. And then there's this incredible restoration and renewal and revival of his calling and his mission when he had a conversation with Jesus on the beach, and he restores him, calls him back to the mission. Like, that's spring seasons. We get these summer seasons, though, where we get the vibrance and the warmth, and there's something about summer that brings this new freshness and vibrance of life. And we talk about fullness and warmth and abundance and joy. And while the beach feels like kind of the ultimate summer destination, the reality is for us, there are these seasons, there are these summer-like seasons in our lives where there are a plethora of activities and events and tasks and responsibilities and things that take space both, hear me, that take space both on our calendar, but also midst of our lives. It takes space there, and there's one main point that I want to share with you this morning, and if you're taking notes, I would encourage you to do that. I'm going to give it to you right here. This is the one main key that I pray this morning that we are able to grasp and hold on to, that when we leave this room together, if you're a part of TFC, you know that our vision, our mission is to become a people that look and reflect the image and likeness of Jesus to our community. So when we leave here, my desire is that we would do that. That main key, the main thought that I pray that we hold on to this morning is this, and you can write it down. Real abundance. Can you say real abundance? Real abundance and joy is not something that we manufacture. It's a gift in the presence of God. Real abundance. I want you to hear that, because there are some things that seem to be abundant in our lives. There are some things that take place in our lives that are good and that are beneficial and that have value and that do bring some life to us. But real abundance and joy is not something that we manufacture. I think it's a gift in the presence of God. And the reality is that if we don't get this, if we can't grasp that, if we can't really lean into that kind of idea, that principle in our lives, like if we don't get it, if we ignore the source of true abundance and joy, I think we will continue to rob seasons that were meant for warmth and joy and rest. We will rob them with more busyness and hurry and distraction. There are these seasons of life, and they're meant to be different, because hear me out, especially parents in the room, you know good and well as I do, what the fall season looks like. Amen? We know what's coming in the fall. We know what the rush of the holidays it brings in the fall. We know that a new school year is beginning. You know your kids are going to be in extracurriculars. You know what the practice schedule looks like. You know what the games look like. You know what the pickup lines. Anyway, know the trek and the journey through pickup lines or bus stops. You know what that does to your work schedule. You know what it does to your commute every day. We know what is coming in those seasons that look like fall. And yet, if we don't understand that real abundance and joy is not something that you and I can create and manufacture on our own, instead it is a gift that is found in the presence of God, I think we will continue to rob the seasons that were meant to be marked by rest and joy and abundance in life with more busyness, hurry, and distraction. I think they're meant to be different. They're meant to be separate. We're lured into the summer season where our kids are out of school. And again, maybe you're an educator in the room or in a field at the university where you get some time off. But we're lured into these seasons and we get a little time off in the summer as well. And we attempt to take the summer season of life, a season that is usually marked with warmth and vibrance and abundance. And we try to craft something. Hear me, we try to craft something that is only ever going to be a temporary taste of what real abundance is supposed to look like. We try to create something, we try to manufacture something, we try to develop something on our own by piecing together some things that, hear me, are good. I don't want this to be miscommunicated this morning. They're going to be like, bro, whoever they let preach is anti-vacation. Like that's, listen, hear me out. I leave tomorrow on vacation. Please don't let this get miscommunicated. Like, don't ever let that guy speak ever again. Like, please. We're trying to take vacation. PTO, remember that? If you've been in church for a little while, though, there's a very familiar piece of scripture in Luke chapter 10. If you have a Bible, you can start to turn there. We're going to be there in just a second. If you're newer with us at church, that's okay. I'm really glad you're here. And if you don't own a Bible, I would love to give you one today. If you come and find me after service, I have one I'll give you. But it's also going to be on the screen. But there's a very familiar piece of scripture about this account of Jesus and some friends in Luke chapter 10. And you can turn there. It's in verse 38 through 42. And it's this gathering of friends that Jesus comes together with. It says, now, in verse 38, now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. Very hospitable, very welcoming, very kind. It says, and she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Very good, very good. If you are maybe newer to church or maybe you're not familiar with this text, you got to understand some of the backstory is that this is not one of those occurrences with Jesus where he meets someone in a village randomly, and it's obviously not random to Jesus or God, like it is not random to him, and as we read it, it feels as though he just met them and they're like, hey, please come have dinner with me because I want to spend time around the Lord. This is not one of those moments. We learn that these are friends of Jesus that he is familiar with. Mary and Martha have a guy that is a brother, a guy by the name of Lazarus that you may be familiar with. And so this is a family that he knows and is familiar with. And so it says that Mary was sitting at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. She went up to him, being Jesus, and said, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? This feels like older sister, younger sister to me. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. This feels like what I would have said to my parents about one of my younger siblings. I'm going to be honest with you. Do you not care that they're not doing their part? She says, don't you care? Then tell her then to help me, Jesus. But the Lord answered her. How many of y'all know the Lord rarely answers in the way that you wanted him to? It says, but the Lord answered her. She thought he was going to come to her rescue. Mary, get up and do this. It says, but the Lord answered her and said, Martha, Martha. Said, you're anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. This is a gathering, again, this is a gathering of friends. This is a gathering of a community of people that are familiar with each other, that they are our friends, would consider themselves family. They're very tight. They know each other. And this is a gathering that is centered around like joy and abundance and friendship and a meal together. There's all the warmth that you can imagine of maybe a Thanksgiving meal. That's where my mind goes. That's the imagery I get, is a warm meal that is not quick. It's drawn out. There's maybe tradition tethered to it. And that's this moment. It's centered around this slow pace of a meal together in a friend's home. And again, this is familiar family to Jesus. These are people he considers friends, but the focus It's very easy for us to read this and think that the focus is that we should be unconcerned with like household chores. Somebody's reading this morning and you're like, those dishes are never getting done. Like, I don't know. Like, you're like, forget it. Like, this is not telling us to be unconcerned with like household chores. I don't think it's even saying that we should be like unconcerned with the preparation or the invitation of a group of people to be in our homes. I think that there's numerous occurrences where Jesus gives us this certain model of his lifestyle and being around community. Like they eat meals together. There's all kinds of Jewish feasts and traditions where they would come together and there was this slow, rhythmic pace of being together. The point of the message is not that we should be unconcerned with household chores. It's not that we should be unconcerned with or ignore the responsibilities necessary to invite friends and family into your home for a meal around a dinner table or in a living room. It's not that we should just ignore or be unconcerned with preparation of an event or a gathering. The focus is that the proper attitude and posture is on his presence. Pastor Sean, during this series, he's referenced the book of Ecclesiastes a couple of times, and a couple of weeks ago he mentioned it. Ecclesiastes, I won't be honest with y'all, Ecclesiastes feels like one of those books that don't get as much screen time. I don't know if you've ever read through it or not. I don't know if it gets as much screen time as some other. We like to read Psalm, and we like to read Proverbs, and we like to read the Gospel in the New Testament. Like, there's some stories we like to read about Elijah, right, in the Old Testament. Like, there's some things we enjoy reading and building up our faith, and Ecclesiastes doesn't necessarily fall into that category. Ecclesiastes, much of it reads that it says that everything, it can feel kind of downcast, that everything is vanity. He says everything is meaningless. He says at one point, he says, there's nothing new under the sun. It can feel a little bit downcast until we grasp and understand the wisdom and the purpose that it was written with. Because it's not just that everything is vanity. If you read in the back half of the book towards the end, chapter 12, it says that like, I've discovered that we should eat and drink and be among friends and be in community. But he says everything is meaningless when we try to seek fulfillment outside of God. It's not that just everything is vanity. It's not just that everything is meaningless. No, there's great meaning and great purpose and great value in our lives. And God has placed people and places and placed us in positions that it's meaningful, that he has great purpose for you. We talk about Ephesians all the time with our students, that God has created you as his workmanship with good things prepared for you in advance that we would walk them out. There is great meaning and purpose to your life, to my life. It's not that just everything is meaningless and vanity. It says this, it says everything is meaningless and pales in comparison to him. That it's meaningless when we try to seek abundance in life and true fulfillment. It's only really found in him. It's meaningless when we try to seek it outside of him. And in the story in Luke, we find Mary and we find Martha and Jesus and some of the disciples, and they're gathering, and Jesus says, Martha. Like, he calls her attention and is like, Martha, like, listen to me. Like, I see you. Like, I see what you're doing. I see what's happening. I see what's taking place here. I see it. But he says, you are anxious and you are troubled about many things. And the Greek word that is used here for troubled can also be translated as distracted. You think about that and you read that and you're like, man, I'm maybe not necessarily anxious and troubled about many things. Yeah, but are we distracted? Are we distracted by a great many things? Are we distracted by all the things that fill our calendar? Are we distracted by, in summer seasons, are we distracted and troubled about a great many things that exist and that we try to create to have memories? Like, hear me out, build memories. Go on vacation, take the trip, go with the family, take the boat out, go camping, go to the beach, do these things. But he's saying, since you're troubled and distracted by a great many things, it doesn't say that Martha was anxious and troubled about many things that were of poor value. It doesn't say that she was distracted and troubled and anxious about many things that had no weight or no significance. She wasn't troubled and distracted by things that were bad for her health or bad for her family. She wasn't distracted by a great many things that were necessarily even like sin. It just says this, it says you were distracted by a great many things, and Jesus says, but one thing is necessary. Hear me, church. The preparation of the event, the preparation of the meal, good, fine. She wasn't doing it wrongly. She's trying to host family and friends in her home. Fill things in our lives that are not wrong. But what we have to bring ourselves back to is that there is one thing that is necessary. Not one thing that was suggested. It wasn't one thing that was recommended. One thing was not a good choice or like a worthy option, not something to consider or like keep in mind for later. He says one thing is necessary. The air that we breathe right now is necessary. Jesus says one thing is necessary. She was distracted by many things, but there was one thing that was necessary. What does it look like for us to model this in our lives? What would it look like for us to live in seasons, in summer seasons of life and abundance and warmth and joy and like the fullness of life, but live it out in a way that models that one thing is necessary? Parents in the room, I'm speaking to you as a fellow parent. Like, what does it look like for us to model to our family and to model to our children that there are things that have good value, that there are things that are maybe good for their development, there are things that are maybe good for their childhood, like there are things that are good and beautiful that life offers, but all of it pales in comparison to the true abundance and joy and the rest that is found in God's presence. What does it look like for us to model that to our family and our children? To the next generation? What does that look like for us? I'm going to give you a very practical. Here's your application. Make the time. I'm going to be honest and transparent with you guys. I've talked about this before. I work off of a blocked calendar. I block out my day. It's color-coded. I have meetings, and I have to-do items, and I have youth events, and I have sermon prep, and I have prayer time, and I use that every day of my work week. We plan everything out. We buy plane tickets, we plan vacations, we take work trips, we plan meetings, we plan phone calls, we plan family time, we plan practices and schedules and rehearsals and extracurriculars and PTO meetings and whatever else that we do during our week. We plan it all out. Do we plan for one thing that is necessary? Make the time. That's your application this week. Make the time. What would it look like for a community of people that desire to become and look more like Jesus, to not just maybe sit in a chair on a Sunday morning and like nod in agreement, but what would it look like for us to take action steps to begin to prepare moments to find rest and abundance in Him? Hear me, church. Plan it. Schedule it. Put it on your calendar. Block it out. Block off 30 minutes each morning or evening over a cup of coffee. Do it over tea. Do it with a book that leads you closer and challenges you to walk out the things of God better. Talk to God. Read the Word of God. Have conversations and be honest and communicate with God. Like, be still and know and listen to His voice, because Martha was distracted by many things. We become distracted by many things, but there is one thing that is necessary. We ask this question, like, why would it matter? Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter that we create this rhythm in these summer seasons of life? Why does it matter that we actually can't manufacture abundance and joy, and we understand that we can't do anything that is more than a temporary taste of real abundance? Here's why. Because if we don't, we'll continue to take the seasons that were meant to be marked with rest and joy, and we will rob them with more busyness and hurry. Listen, trying to create something that God already offers us. We will rob the seasons of summer of rest and warmth and abundance and fullness of life. We will rob it trying to fill it and pack it out with more things that are good and that God in his goodness and his grace has placed and positioned in our lives. And we will try to manufacture and piece together this gift that God already offers in its purest form. If you've ever been on family with vacation and you got back home and you asked yourself, like, you've ever said, like, I need a vacation from my vacation? Anybody ever been there before? Yeah, everybody in the room understood that. Like, it was verbal. You're like, I need a vacation from my vacation. Why? Just follow me for a moment, because I was thinking about this as I was writing it. I'm like, why? I'm gonna leave tomorrow, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't love traveling. I'm a homebody. My wife gave me a hard time because she's like, if we don't book somewhere else, we're gonna have a staycation. And I'm like, I am totally okay with that. That sounds amazing. I'll sit right here. I don't enjoy driving. And so I'm going to get back, and I'm going to get back on Thursday or whatever. And I'm going to be like, bro, I need some time off from the time off. Like, I don't know. Like, there's something about it. And it's so funny to think about it. We joke about it, but it's trips to tournaments with our kids. It's all the beach trips that we could imagine, or it's the family vacation to a beautiful and fun destination. Like, we're authentically restful. We're trying to live in the abundance of life. Why would we need rest from rest? Why would we still be desiring abundance from what we believed was abundant? Could it be that we are trying to take pleasure in good things that God allows in our lives to try and fabricate and craft an enjoyment that is meant to be temporary? I want to be so clear. Vacation with your family is not bad. Take the vacation. Make memories. Like enjoying time away, making memories and creating family traditions or moments with your kids or parents. None of that is wrong. There's a beauty in it. I think God provides space and opportunity for it in his grace and his love for us. I really do. But it will never be able to replace the peace and joy and warmth and rest and abundance that is pure and whole that God offers in his presence. Psalm 16:11. If you can read this with me, it's going to be on the screen. It says, you make known to me the path of life. But hear this. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. I don't know about y'all, but man, there's some things in my life that bring happiness. There's some things in my life that bring life to me. It's, for some of you in the room, it's being on a lake. For some of you, it's fishing in the ocean. For some of you, it's a camping trip. For some of you, it's sitting around a campfire. For some of you, it's whatever is restful. It's beach. It says, in your presence, there is fullness of joy. And at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. It was a survey done by the American Psychological Association, and it found this, found that nearly 60% of individuals felt more stressed after returning from vacation because of the workload waiting for them when they got back. We joked about it a moment ago, and it's something that we sense and feel, all of us in the room. They did a study on it. 60% of people feel more stressed because, hear me, like, again, I don't want this to get miscommunicated. I'm literally leaving tomorrow to go with my family. Tiffany and I are celebrating 10 years of marriage, which is cool. She's put up with me for 10 years, which I'm grateful, very grateful. And we're going to do that, and it's going to be fun, and we're going to build memories, and we're going to have a great time. Like, I'm withdrawing, but listen to me. If I withdraw from my responsibilities, and I withdraw, and I mute my emails, and I withdraw, and I take time with my family, and I withdraw, and I go somewhere where I can just rest, and I can experience fullness of life with my family, who I love dearly. Like, I can experience these things. But if I withdraw from all of that, including the space created to be in his presence, I will come back and still be seeking for abundance and joy. I'll still be seeking it. I'll still desire it. I'll still be looking for it. I'll still be trying to find where I can get it. Have you ever re-gifted a present before? Raise your hand real quick. If you don't raise your hand, I don't trust the number of hands that just went up, and maybe it's because you're sitting beside the person you gave the gift away. That's cool. That's between you and them. Imagine with me for a moment, though, if you've ever re-gifted a present. This is what's happening in our lives in these seasons of summer that are meant to be marked with rest and joy and abundance and warmth and all the fullness of life, is that we are taking the things, the good things, the events and activities for our kids. We're taking the beach trip. We're taking the camping trip. We're taking the time away. We're taking the whatever it is, all the good things that God in his goodness and his grace for his children has positioned and placed in our lives. And we're taking it and we're trying to create a gift of things that he gave us to create and fabricate a different version of something that he stands holding and offering to us. We're trying to re-gift something he gave us and create something different that he offered in its purest form. Here's what I want you to hear this morning. Don't let the good things around us distract us from the one thing that is necessary. In the summer seasons of life, in joy and warmth and abundance on the family trip, don't let the good things and the blessings in our lives distract us from the one thing that is necessary. One thing that is meaningful. Martha, in the story of welcoming Jesus into her home, was doing things that were meaningful and productive. She was preparing a meal. She was creating space in her home for a gathering of friends and the Lord Jesus, but she became anxious and distracted by many things. In the joy and abundance of maybe these summer-like seasons with activities and new life comes the need to be still and to be present in his presence. And it's difficult, and each of us have a different version. We've got a different painting of what abundance looks like. We've got a different version of what life looks like. We've got this different version of what goodness and fullness looks like. But it becomes so easy to view it and become distracted from the one thing that is necessary, which is time in his presence, where there is fullness of joy and pleasures forevermore.